Today we're going to be learning some new vocab words and two theorems that are associated with those vocab words. What I want to do first is just kind of do this little warm-up activity. I think this 50 should actually be right here. So they want to know what is the measure of angle ADE, that's this angle here, and it should be 50 as well, because these arrows mean parallel, and these would be corresponding angles, so they should be congruent. Angle BDE would be this angle here, so we should know that that would have to be 130 degrees, since they have to make 180. To do this, we're going to do a little activity. To do this, you're going to need a piece of paper, scissors, and a ruler, and something to write with. So on your note sheet, you'll see a box and it says place triangle here. This is the triangle that you're going to make. So go ahead and draw a relatively large triangle. Just don't make it too big that it doesn't fit in the box, and then go ahead and cut it out. When you do that, you're going to label your vertices A, B, and C. And then with your ruler, I'd like you to measure AB and record your distance in the middle. So for example, my distance from A to B is 6 inches, so I'm going to write 6 inches in the middle here. So you can go ahead and pause this until you're ready, and then go ahead and restart it once you're done. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to find the midpoint, about the halfway point of AC. Make it exact. I want you to take your corner A, and I want you to literally just fold the line over itself until corner A is on top of corner C. The line should be basically folded in half. You're folding in half this line. When you do that, unfold it, and there should be a crease down through the midpoint. I want you to label that midpoint L. Repeat the same thing with B and C. So you're finding the midpoint of the side BC. So fold corner B onto corner C. And once you label that midpoint N. Go ahead and connect points L and N together, just like I did. And then I want you to measure L to N. So my L to N would be 3 inches, and then you're supposed to make an observation. How do your distances compare? If you did that correctly, your shorter piece should be about half of your longer piece. So LN should be about half, or should be half of AB if you did it correctly. So we call line segment LN a mid-segment. There's 2 rules you need to remember about a mid-segment. First rule is it's always going to be parallel to the third side of the triangle. And it's always going to be half the length, just like we saw with 6 and 3. This mid-segment is half of 6, so it's going to be 3. Make a mid-segment, you need midpoints of 2 sides of a triangle, and then you connect them. So in any triangle, you can have at most 3 mid-segments. So let's practice using these mid-segments. In triangle DF, A, B, and C are midpoints. So before we do anything, go ahead and mark each pair of sides congruent. Since like A is a midpoint, that means there's tick marks on either side. B is a midpoint, and C is a midpoint. That means that all of these segments inside AC, segment AB, segment BC are all mid-segments. So let's just kind of practice seeing the picture here. If you look at segment AB, it is parallel to side EF. And you can see that segment EF and segment AB are parallel. So if E to F was 20, then A to B is 10. It's going to be half of the other side's length. If you look at E to D, E to D is this segment right here. It's going to be parallel to BC. And AC is going to be parallel to segment DF. So they want to know, of those 6 lines, which 3 are your mid-segments? Well, they're going to be the 3 that are on the inside. So BC, AC, and AB. Those are all your mid-segments. They're lines that join midpoints. What I want you to do, there's a lot of information in this problem. I want you to put this information in the picture. Starting with H, J, and K are all midpoints. So let's put tick marks on the sides. EF is 60. So we're going to mark that as 60. EG is 100. And H to K is 40. You are to find the distance from H to J, J to K, E to K, and F to G. So let's start with H to J. Since HJ is the mid-segment and it's parallel to EG, if EG is 100, HJ is 50. You look at J to K, again, that's a mid-segment, and the side it's parallel to is FE, so it's going to be half of 60, which is 30. You look at FG, that's actually the longer side, so it's got to be twice the mid-segment that it's parallel to, so it's going to be twice 40, which is 80. We're missing EK. We need EK in here. Now E to K is a little different. So what you're going to have to realize is K is a midpoint. So if the whole thing's 100, then from E to K has to be 50. So keep an eye out for that. A lot of times we overlook the fact that these are indeed midpoints. So we've got to know that one side is equal to the other. In our third example, notice this time I gave you expressions. So let's go ahead and solve for M and P first, since those are a little quicker. Obviously, M would have to be 150. P is going to be 30 for 2 reasons. It's corresponding to the 30 degrees up here, or you could say that 30 and 150 are same side interior angles, so they should make 180. Now B to D is a mid-segment. Because of these tick marks, I know D is a midpoint and B is a midpoint. So to go from BD to AE, I have to multiply this by 2. So we're going to set up the following expression. 2 times the mid-segment will equal the longer segment. So I'd like you to go ahead and solve that for y and see if you get what I get. you should get y equals 6. So if we plug that back in, three times 6 is 18. 18 minus 5 would be 13. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 plus 2 is 26. And you'll see 13 is half of 26, so you did it correctly. So what I'd like you to do is try examples 1 through 10 and see if your answers agree with mine. Keep in mind for problems like number 2, you can either multiply the smaller segment times 2 and make it equal the bigger, or you can just set the smaller equal to half of the bigger. It's the same thing. So you have to pick which one works for you. Now since I gave you in number 5, I gave you the smaller segment. I know if I do 5 times 2, that's going to equal bigger segment. So this bigger segment has to be 10. In that case, x would have to be 11. So check your answers for 1 through 6. Should have gotten 9. Number 2, you could do 2 times 5x equals 70, or you could do 5x equals 35. It's the same thing. You get 7. Number 3, I realize this smaller piece should be half of 84, which is 42, and that means x is 14. Number 4, I have to multiply the smaller times 2, and because it's an expression, I have to make sure I'm using distributive property. And then number 5 should be 11, and 6 would be 2. Now I like to go ahead and label this picture. So they tell you that u to v, so this whole thing is 80. T to v, this whole thing is 100. And h to d is 80. So let's take a look here. HE is the mid segment, and it's parallel to the side that's 80, so it's going to be half the length. TU is the bigger segment. It's parallel to the side that's 80, so it's actually going to be 160. E to D is half of TV, so it's going to be 50. And T to E would be half of T to U. And we found out that TU is 160. So T to E would have to be 80. Again, remembering that E, H, and D are all midpoints. So each side is congruent to the other in these pictures.